He knocked me over. I landed on the dog bowl.
This one's wife. CBS interview. Lost your kids? No problem. I'll make it all about me. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The segment on CBS's programme Sunday Morning has recently aired. It was around about just short of 9 minutes in length. It revolved around the creation of yet another website by this one's wife and Harry through the auspices of the Archwell Foundation called Parents Network. And as we are aware, it focuses on those individuals that have suffered loss, whereby they have lost their children as a consequence of online activity. What occurred in this segment on this CBS show? Well, let's have a look at the first part. Here we see this one's wife and Harry meeting some of the parents.
On a brilliant summer day near Santa Barbara last week, a group of friends got together. This was not your typical receiving line.
Hi!
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, better known as Harry and Meghan, are definitely big huggers. It was a meeting of an exclusive club.
Oh, it's good to meet you.
And one that none of them wanted to join. Most of the parents here have lost a child, directly or indirectly, as a result of exposure to online social media. Harry and Meghan are trying to give them, and parents like them, some place to turn for help.
What you will have immediately noticed is, of course, this one's wife has to lead the way. Dressed in beige once again, she is the one that sachets her way in, sauntering in as if to say, I'm going to surprise these people. Well, of course, they all know that they're coming. After all, why would there be a TV crew there? And furthermore, why would they all be congregating? Nevertheless, demonstrating that she's always performative, this one's wife has to sort of walk in as if she's about to surprise everybody. Facade Management is being engaged, as you know, because she's a narcissist. Whenever she is interacting with anybody else, her narcissism drives her to pursue the prime aims. There's no such thing as part-time narcissism. She doesn't switch it on and off when there are other people around. She is always, repeat, always governed by that narcissism. This is very important for people to understand. There are occasions where people think, oh, well, the narcissist was actually being polite. No, their politeness was just the veneer to get to the prime aims. They're not genuinely polite. The politeness has a vested interest, if you will. And here we see her walking in front of Harry because she's more important. She has to lead the way. This driven again by her narcissism. And then as she meets the parents, it's time to hug them, as there is a direct physical assertion of control in order to make it seem like she cares. Her cognitive empathy is being utilized in such circumstances. Thus, you see the facade management, I care, pleased to see you, hugs all round, all benign behaviours directed towards these parents. Of course, once again, this is set against the backdrop of an individual who has failed to comment about the bullying that was exhibited towards her sister-in-law and her extended family. An individual who is deemed to have been complicit in the behaviours of the Sussex squad, but naturally through compartmentalisation, attends by saying, oh, we care about cyberbullying, we care about the online environment. She doesn't genuinely. Her narcissism causes her to state that she does in order to ensure that she portrays this image for the purposes of getting to the prime aims. It's entirely an artifice. Thereafter, it cuts to some footage of the Archwell advertisement for the Parents Network, which is not something that you necessarily need to see. Then we're back to this one's wife. Let's see what happens next.
Gosh, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you.
Meghan herself knows a thing or two about online bullying.
And how do you do?
And of course, her husband Harry is no stranger to that either, or to unspeakable grief. The central topic is the loss that these families have suffered. Stories that need to be shared because the parents who are listening who have not suffered a loss think that they couldn't. But they could.
They certainly could. And that's, I think, one of the scariest things that we've learned over the course of the last 15, 17 years that social media's been around, and more so recently, is the fact that it could happen to absolutely anybody. I mean, we always talk about, in the olden days, if your kids were under your roof, you knew what they were up to. At least they were safe, right? And now they can be in the next door room on a tablet or on a phone and can be going down these rabbit holes. And before you know it, within 24 hours, they could be taking their life.
Our kids are young. They're 3 and 5. They're amazing. But all you want to do as parents is protect them. And so as we can see what's happening in the online space, we know that there's a lot of work to be done there, and we're just happy to be able to be a part of
Well, you
change
hope
for
that
good.
when your children ask for help, someone, is there to give it.
If you know how to help.
Thank you.
At this point, we've got to the stage where almost every parent needs to be a first responder. And even the best first responders in the world wouldn't be able to tell the signs of possible suicide. Like that is the terrifying piece of this.
So we're now treated to the wisdom of this one and this one's wife. Immediately, of course, the fact of their pain has to be mentioned. The fact that this one's wife has been the victim of online bullying, no mention made of those that have been bullied by her, of course, and Harry's loss, which the world knows about as a consequence of the loss of his mother. But straight away, it's on to the eternal victims and talking about them. We then get some explanations. First of all, Harry very helpfully tells us what a roof looks like, with the gesticulation by his fingers in case we were uncertain as to what a roof looks like. That's very helpful. Thank you, Harry. You'll also hear, whilst Harry's talking, some strange murmuring noises that are going on. I don't know if this one's wife has got some trapped wind or something, or she's trying to sound like she's being affirmative, but there's rather odd murmuring that's taking place. As this one's wife, of course, tells us in her vocal fry about how amazing her kids are, thanks for sharing that, we then get more about Harry telling us about the first responders, the section that has been seen before. And whilst he's speaking, you can see the contempt that this one's wife has for him, looking at him as if to say, "Shut up, I want to speak." So far, so uninspiring, but already it's being brought back onto them, talking about their loss, their circumstances. This is meant to be about the suffering of parents who have gone through probably one of the most painful things that a parent could ever experience, the loss of a child. Instead, we're treated to the banal outpourings of this one's wife and Harry, driven by different aspects. Harry tries to mean well, but he's not particularly bright and somewhat clumsy in what he tries to explain when he's talking about first responders. With this one's wife, as you know, her responses are driven by her narcissism, and we also are treated to the weird murmuring noises and the contemptuous look that's fired at Harry. What then follows is a segment where they're sat next to two of the parents as the two parents talk about their circumstances, with this one's wife and Harry just looking onwards. Again, it's not necessary to show that part, as those two parents talk about what happened to their son and the circumstances surrounding all of that. But then it has to be brought back to this one's wife, of course. Here she comes.
Meghan Markle has been there, as she told Oprah Winfrey in 2021.
Look, I was really ashamed to say it at the time, and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry especially, because I know how much loss he's suffered. But I knew that if I didn't say it, that I would do it, and I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
You had an experience that connects you to these families, and I see you touch your husband's hand in just the way I knew that you would be looking after each other if I went places. But the connection that you have with people is they know you
you had suffered too, personally. Contemplating killing yourself is what suicidal ideation was. And I'm dancing around this because I can see you're uncomfortable with my even going there. Do you?
I understand why you are, though. I wasn't expecting it, but I understand why you are, because there is a through line, I think. And when you've been through any level of pain or trauma, I believe part of our healing journey, certainly part of mine, is being able to be really open about it. And I haven't really scraped the surface on my experience, but I do think that I would never want someone else to feel that way. And I would never want someone else to be making those sort of plans. And I would never want someone else to not be believed. So if me voicing what I have overcome will save someone, or asks or encourage someone in their life to really genuinely check in on them and not assume that the appearance is good so everything's okay, then that's worth it. I'll take a hit for that.
This segment provides us with some interesting insight with regard to this one's wife's narcissism. First of all, there's a great big dollop of bringing up the past. Yes, it is the Oprah interview, where the alleged suicidal ideation episode was first aired. You'll remember that Piers Morgan memorably stated that he didn't believe that this was genuine, and it certainly seems to have been a revision of history which was rolled out at the time for the purposes of trying to elicit sympathy, pity play, and also to smear the royal family by suggesting that she was not given the support. It didn't stack up. For many reasons. We don't need to go into those reasons now, but it didn't stack up. But here it is again being brought up because, of course, this has to be all about this one's wife. Never mind the fact that these are parents who have suffered incredible grief by losing their children. That doesn't matter. What matters is what has happened to this one's wife. Her narcissism, of course, is telling her to try and make her seem relatable on the basis that, well, I almost took my life, so I understand what it must have been like for your children when they did take their lives as a consequence of what they experienced online. I understand. There's only two major problems with that. The first is she has no emotional empathy, so she doesn't actually feel. She has some cognitive empathy, but that generally misfires. Furthermore, as for reasons that have been stated repeatedly, it is highly questionable whether the episode actually occurred, and therefore to suggest that she can equate to the experiences of both the parents and the children in a way is rather insulting. There's also more, because whilst there is the instance of her touching Harry on the leg, I'll be analysing that separately, so we'll park that thought. But you'll also see that she is questioned about the experience of the supposed suicidal ideation. And the interviewer states that she concedes that it's made her uncomfortable. Really? I thought I was looking at a waxwork whilst that was being mentioned. There was no reaction whatsoever from this one's wife while it was being spoken about. There was almost a 404 moment. Watch my video of the same name. This is because this one's wife is frantically trying to make a connection with something that has been stated in the past in order to provide a meaningful answer. Because she has no emotional empathy, she isn't able to rely upon an appropriate feeling, and instead her narcissism is thinking, right, feeling uncomfortable as a consequence of the suicidal ideation being mentioned. What can we come up with? What can we come up with? Oh no, touch your hair. No, that won't do. Start batting your eyelids. No. Oh, does not compute. Talk about healing journey and overcoming, and wasn't expecting that. For the uninitiated, they would believe that her reaction is somebody that has been caught out in the sense of it's uncomfortable to talk about. That would be the reaction of those that don't understand a narcissist. What you actually witnessed was a narcissist who was challenged, because the recollection of the event doesn't hold true. And as a consequence of that, her narcissism then has to embark upon a journey of trying to think about how would that actually feel in order to convey that. And what you get is a bit of a sort of word salad combined with the touching of the hair, an anxious response, the batting of the eyelids, an anxious response, because her narcissism is feeling the threat to control and causes her to respond in kind. Naturally, we get the mumbo-jumbo about overcoming things and a healing journey. Her response is not convincing at all. And whilst there might be someone who would say that's a very cynical view to have, HG, it isn't. It is simply an observation of seeing a narcissist trying to recall an event that had been invented and finding themselves in difficulty when trying to expand upon that. It's an excellent example of the narcissist initially experiencing a 404 moment, not actually understanding what response needs to be provided, and then essentially groping around in the dark trying to find some kind of answer to appear convincing. It's fascinating to watch. Thereafter, there's more discussion and there's a voiceover as the gruesome twosome are talking further with the parents, and there's nothing really that needs to be added there. And finally, this one's wife rounds things off with some of her usual fridge magnet platitudes. I'm not going to bore you with showing you the short bit of footage from that. What I've done is chosen the key aspects which demonstrate the way that she has to dominate proceedings, lead Harry, hug people to physically assert control over them, or the way that she looks in a contemptuous fashion at Harry, and the most revealing segment, of course, of making it all about her and what happened to her, thus overshadowing the experiences of the parents and the children, and then the 404 moment and the unconvincing response thereafter. Once again, this one's wife's behaviour provides you with a fascinating insight into her narcissism. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for watching.